NHK World Network Tokyo. It's 9 hours of Japan time, midnight UTC. I'm Takahiko Kobayashi with the news. In the headlines, the Power Reactor and Nuclear Fuel Development Corporation has again found plutonium in ashes from an incinerator at its plant. A senior official of Japan's governing party says he hopes the party will begin its study of tax reform before the Prime Minister leaves for the United States on July 19th. And the London and Frankfurt stock exchanges have agreed to form an alliance that will ultimately lead to the creation of a single European equity market. Now the main news in detail. The Power Reactor and Nuclear Fuel Development Corporation has again found plutonium in ashes from an incinerator at its plant in Tokai Village, Ibaraki Prefecture, northeast of Tokyo. The inspection follows last month's detection of uranium and plutonium in ashes from the incinerator, as well as in a storage facility for normal waste. The ashes and the waste should not be contaminated. Officials of the corporation inspected 200 drums of ashes from the incinerator, which originally came from a reprocessing plant. On Tuesday, they found that the one drum was contaminated with cesium, which is a radioactive substance. The officials say that the radioactivity level of the waste is very low, and it poses no danger to humans or the environment. The Science and Technology Agency and the corporation's officials say they will continue to investigate the matter. A senior official of Japan's governing party says he hopes the party will begin its study of tax reform before the Prime Minister leaves for the United States on July 19th. Chairman Taku Yamasaki of the Liberal Democratic Policy Research Council was speaking in Fukuoka, southern Japan, on Tuesday. Mr. Yamasaki said he hopes the party's research commission on the tax system will begin full-scale study on tax reforms after the upper house elections scheduled for this Sunday. He said the commission will review the income, corporate, inheritance, and other tax systems. Mr. Yamasaki said he hopes the commission will meet on this matter before Prime Minister Ryutaro Hashimoto begins his diplomatic itinerary, which includes the Japan-U.S. summit in Washington later this month. The London and Frankfurt stock exchanges have agreed to form an alliance that will ultimately lead to the creation of a single European equity market. This was announced by the chief executive of the London Stock Exchange, Gavin Casey, and his German counterpart, Werner Seifeld, in London on Tuesday. The statement said that the first stage would provide a common access package for both exchanges in time for the launch of the euro single currency on January 1st next year. The statement added that the second stage would be the creation of a common electronic trading platform that would cover about 300 blue-chip stocks. Our correspondent in London says that the financial community had expressed a concern before the announcement of the agreement that the London equity market's preeminence in Europe would be eroded after the launch of the single currency. Our correspondent also says that the German side has apparently concluded that the alliance will strengthen its international competitiveness. A government advisory panel has decided to set up a task force to study deregulatory and tax measures to allow wider use of the yen in international transactions. The decision was made at the meeting on Tuesday of the Committee on Foreign Exchange and Other Transactions, which advises the Finance Minister. Finance Minister Hikaru Matsunaga told the committee that over-dependence on the U.S. dollar led to the currency crisis in Thailand, Indonesia, and other Asian countries. Mr. Matsunaga pointed out that the yen's role in international transactions could be further eclipsed once the European Union introduces its single currency, the euro, next January, as scheduled. The new task force is due to start a discussion on Wednesday possible ways to promote foreign investment in yen-denominated financial instruments. One possibility is to allow non-financial institutions and foreign investors to trade securities issued by the government to raise funds for intervention in foreign exchange markets. Another is to make tax-free the interest earned by foreign investors investing in Japan's short-term money market. Now, here is the frequency notice. You are listening to Radio Japan, broadcasting on 11.705 megahertz in the 25-meter band, being relayed to eastern part of North America via Sakibo, Canada. This transmission is also relayed to Europe via Skelton, England on 6.155 and 6.180 megahertz, and to Central Africa via Ascension Island in the Atlantic on 9.665 megahertz. Listeners in Asia can also hear this transmission until 0:15 hours UTC on 11.815 and 13.650 megahertz. Now, other news. Japan's largest travel agency said on Tuesday that the number of Japanese traveling abroad this summer will drop for the first time in 18 years because of the weak yen and the sluggish economy. According to a survey by the Japan Travel Bureau, or JTB, about 3.1 million people are planning overseas trips this summer. This is a decline of 2.4% from last year. JTB officials said that there has been a particularly sharp decline in the number of Japanese visitors to Hong Kong and Indonesia. The officials said that the number of people planning domestic trips has increased. The officials added that the domestic travel has become more attractive because of discounts offered by the Japan Railway Group and airline companies, cheaper package tours, and improved transportation links. The number of subscriptions to cellular phone and personal handy phone system, or PHS services, topped 40 million for the first time in June. The Post and Telecommunications Ministry said on Tuesday that the number of subscriptions for cellular phone services had reached 34,070,000 by the end of last month. The equivalent figure for PHS services was 6,560,000. The combined total is equal to two-thirds of the subscriptions for the regular services provided by the Nippon Telegraph and Telephone Corporation. The number of subscribers for cellular phone and PHS services topped 10 million in February 1996, 6 months after personal handy phone services were introduced in Japan. The number has quadrupled in 2 years, and now 1 in every 3 Japanese has a mobile phone. Lower charges have helped to boost the number of cellular phone subscriptions, but the number of PHS subscriptions has been declining since last autumn. PHS phones cannot be easily used in moving vehicles, which may be one of the factors behind their declining popularity. The number of subscriptions for regular NTT services fell in June for the first time since 1952. Japan's Maritime Safety Agency plans to deploy a specially equipped patrol boat for removing oil slicks in severe weather conditions. Vessels with this type of equipment were not available when the Russian tanker, the Nakochka, leaked a massive amount of heavy oil into the Sea of Japan in February last year. The new 1,200-ton patrol boat, the Hakata, was recently launched in Tokyo. It will have oil fences on its deck and will use oil recovering equipment that can operate in waves as high as 2.5 meters. The agency says it will deploy the boat in November. At present, the agency's oil recovering operations are limited to ports or coastal areas with calm weather conditions. The Transport Ministry plans to develop a similar vessel that can operate in 4-meter-high waves by March 2001. Japan's space agency successfully accomplished the first ever automatic docking of 2 satellites on Tuesday. Engineers of the National Space Development Agency separated an experimental satellite into 2 parts at an altitude of 550 kilometers. The 2 satellites were named Kobayashi and Orihime, after the celestial lovers in the Japanese legend, who are allowed to meet only on the night of the Star Festival, which falls on July 7th. The 2 satellites made a rendezvous, maintaining a distance of 2 meters for about 15 minutes. Then, Kobayashi began its approach to Orihime, gauging the distance by means of automatic and remote controls. When they were about 50 centimeters apart, Kobayashi successfully captured Orihime with its docking device. The agency plans to carry out more experiments, aiming to develop unmanned spacecraft for delivering loads to a planned international space station. A government survey indicates that Japanese researchers have so far impregnated 21 cows using cloning technology. The survey conducted by the ministry in charge of agriculture at the end of April shows that the researchers had successfully impregnated 21 cows using a method similar to the one developed by Scottish researchers with sheep 2 years ago. Researchers remove nuclei from adult cells and transplant them into unfertilized ova, which are then transferred to the wombs of surrogate mother cows. 21 successful cases include one in which twins were born at Livestock Research Institute in Ishikawa Prefecture last Sunday. Japan has begun coordinating plans with Malaysia to provide yen loans to that country for the first time in 4 years. Malaysia has not asked for new yen-dominated loans since 1994 because the yen's appreciation increased the amount of money needed to repay the loans. However, due to a shortage of funds amid the current economic crisis, Malaysia is now seeking the resumption of yen loans as a low-interest source of public funds. The Japanese government is asking Malaysia to present concrete plans for extending the loans. Finally, let's take a look at the top stories at this hour. The Power Reactor and Nuclear Fuel Development Corporation has again found plutonium in ashes from an incinerator at its plant in Tokai Village, Ibaraki Prefecture. A senior official of Japan's governing party says he hopes the party will begin its study of tax reform before the Prime Minister leaves for the United States on July 19th. The London and Frankfurt stock exchanges have agreed to form an alliance that will ultimately lead to the creation of a single European equity market. That's the news from Radio Japan. I'm Takahiko Kobayashi.